Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Gabby Gaudet alongside Ron Nicoletti here to tackle the second weekend of the championship meet. Welcome back, Ron. It's going to be a fantastic afternoon.
Should be a lot of fun. We did have a little rain last night, so a couple of races taken off the turf, but got a couple on. Should be a fun day of wagering.
We do. Speaking of those races, 2, 4, and 8 are off the turf, and races 6 and 9 do remain on the turf as of now. The conditions good for the turf and the main track, and we have 10 races on tap. Again, a really good start to the championship meet last weekend. Unfortunately, we were rained off the turf for the majority of them, but an excellent claiming crown day to kick off the championship
Yeah, it
meet.
was really fantastic and a lot of fun, and they bet a lot of money. It was, of course, it was a little disappointing with the coming off the turf, but boy, the races really held together, and they were pretty formful throughout the afternoon. So if you had the right horses, you were able to score pretty good.
Absolutely. We'll take a look at today and look at some of those wagers and carryovers. Race 1 does start us off with that rolling super high $5 wager, and that's a new wager for the championship meet, as is the early pick 5. Both of those wagers start in the first race, but we do have a carryover this afternoon, and that is in the 20-cent rainbow pick 6 that starts in race 5, over $21,000.
Yeah, once they get a carryover in here, it starts to build, and as if you're not aware of it, one time paid $6.6 million, and it's only a 20-cent wager. So lots of fun with the Rainbow Six. The most popular bet we have down here as far as multiple wager bets with that 20-cent key.
And if that's still not enough action, you can get into the late pick 5 that does start in race 6 today. Let's dive right into today's races. 10 races on tap. Race 1 does kick us off. $6,250,000 claimer. 6 furlongs onto the main track. And I think this is an interesting race, but I did land on the 5-1 for Don as the top selection here for George Navarro. What direction did you go in here?
I went the same way. I went the 5-1 for Don. He's stretching out today to 3/4 of a mile. After returning from that 2-month freshening, he defeated the same caliber of competition that was going 5.5 furlongs at Gulfstream Park West. George Navarro does an excellent job. He's about 27% winning consecutive races, but all his stats are seem to be over 25%. He thought he was the logical one up there. Currently 9-2 on the board, but very, very early in the wagering.
Yeah, very early, and this horse has been extremely consistent. I like the fact that he defeated Open Company last time out by multiple lengths, so he looks like, and you look at the connections, and it wasn't a fluke whatsoever. That horse was well placed last time out. You look at the statistics of the win back percentage, and they just continue to fire. So I like the connections with the number 5, but the one Media Kid for trainer Joe Sharp. This is another horse who has been facing Open Company in the past few starts, and slightly tougher the Open 10,000 condition and the Open 25 at Belmont 2 starts back. And I do like the fact that, especially last time out, he showed some speed going the 7/8 distance, and now cutting back to 3/4, he should be able to work out a trip from that inside post.
Yeah, and that was a sealed sloppy track at Gulfstream Park West, so we have some moisture in the track today. You see we started the day with a good main track, and Joe Sharp's going to add blinkers again this afternoon. They took them off, put them back on, and they're once again on with number 1 Media Kid. So we're in total agreement with our early exacta today, 5-1. You did use the number 7 in third in there, and that horse I did not use, who's currently favored on the board, and that is at Bellamy Road.
Yeah, David Jacobson brings this horse down, and I believe Andy Serling was mentioning a statistic last weekend. I believe he must have been 0 for 17 with shipping horses down to Gulfstream, and he put that statistic to rest as Stall Walking Dude wound up getting the victory last weekend. So I'm hoping that he has a little bit more success again. This is a horse that should show speed, and I do think that he might be able to have the tactical advantage early. Whether or not he can sustain that bid to the finish line is the big question, but I think he's a horse to maybe use in some exotics.
Yeah, you can use him in exotics. I close it out with the 2 Caminito, gelded son of Lemon Drop Kid, returning to one of his favorite racing surfers. It's one of my key angles here early on in the meet. You like horses that have proven a commodity on this course. 9 races, 2 wins, 3 seconds and 2/3. He split horses last time out, finished a well-meant second against similar quality, going 7/8 of a mile across town. So the old horse for course angle.
Always a prosperous one as well. We'll move on to race 2 off the turf onto the main track at 7 furlongs, and we have a few scratches in here, but I go to the way outside, and there's not too many scratches in this event, so I do think she's going to be compromised by that way outside post position, but I do like her in the mix here. I think she can show some early speed. In the past couple of starts, she showed speed and then just seemed to falter late, but one thing to take in consideration, she's still staying at that one turn distance. The mile is a one turn at Churchill. She showed speed, stopped late, but I do think that from that she's got outside speed, so maybe she can dictate the race from that outside.
Yeah, you know, if you're not aware, this was originally scheduled for 7.5 furlongs on the turf. It reverts back to 7 furlongs on the main track, so it is a sprint race. I kept the 4 on top. Gabby, my old running mate, she can't miss, is turning back to 7 furlongs in the main track today after following a second place finish going a mile and 70 yards. That was on Gulfstream Park West main track. Comes back, runs second on the turf around 2 turns. The daughter of Cantaris, this sire's been doing great, second year sire, and I think this one fits perfectly with the move to the dirt.
And also going to be using the 15 prize arch in here. Entered for main track only. As sprinted on the dirt last time out, was a decent third. But again, this is a horse who could be bet because of the main track only situation. And he was just third in a 5-horse field. So they were kind of really sporadically placed throughout the race. So again, if you see this horse maybe teetering on low odds, maybe go in a different direction. I do really like your 4 if I was going to be using another one in there. I opt to throw her in the exacta. We'll move on to the third race on the main track at the one-turn mile. And the one dream come true I found was a little bit interesting. Now, we have seen in the past this rail post position can be very tricky at the one-turn mile. However, if you are the fastest early, I do think that it might be even an advantage to draw that rail post. And this filly has a lot of early speed, and hopefully she can clear early, dictate the pace. You see in the running line some nice horses that are coming out of her form, including My House a few starts back, who ran a good second in the Glass Slipper last weekend.
Yeah, and you need that early speed. As you mentioned, short run to the first turn with the one-turn mile. You got to get up there and get position. I did go with the number 3 in here, and that is Distinctly Sweet, who's turning back to a one-turn mile again after stalking the action, finishing second to its nemesis, Starship Elisa. This one in back-to-back 2-turn miles across town at Gulfstream Park West. Doug Potter has jockey Alex Gonzalez trying to get the with distinction mare out of second gear. Has been stuck in second gear a little bit.
And I'm a little bit worried by her because obviously Dream Come True, she's got speed from the rail, but Distinctively Sweet is very fast in her own right. And she very well could kind of dictate the speed from that outside post position. She's coming out of 2 races where Starship Lisa was just much the best in those events. I think she was heavily bet. That's a filly who's just been in very good form as of late. So I think you have a good one there with the 3. I used the 4 A Fitzing Reward here as well. You go back to her main track performance. She was well beaten by Open Company, but that was a tough filly that she had to face. She reeled off 3 victories in a row. I see you opt for the 5 and the 6 as well.
Yeah, now Niagara, the number 5, is making her first start since responding to a drop in competition, finishing second here at this level and distance, albeit it was back on September 4th. Trainer Howard Mills, who has 2 in this race, he's also got Fee and Sugar. Edgar Zayas atop this 4-time local winner. There's that angle again. 15 races, 4 wins, a second and 5/3. So a 5-time winner at the distance also. So lots of things to like about the number 5 Niagara. Besides liking this track, loving the distance, I just thought someone I would throw on my ticket along with the 6 LNAT. 6 for 10 in the money on this track. Once again, 10 starts, 2 wins, 2 seconds, 2/3. Stepping up today against Open Competition after rallying to come within a neck of defeating condition claimers. It's a big jump up from condition claimers to Open Competition. People are not aware of that. They see $6,250. If it's a condition race, what we mean is a horse that the non-winners of 2, non-winners of 3 races in life. Open Company, they could have 50 wins.
Exactly. It's definitely a hike up there in class. We're kind of all over the map there in that race, but we do agree on the 3 in there. We'll take a look at race 4 on the card. A conditional $16,000 claiming event. Originally carded for the turf, will run on the main track at a mile and a 16th. And as you reminded me last weekend too, first wire finish, so it's a little bit of a shorter stretch here. And I thought this was an interesting race off the turf onto the main track. I landed on a horse, the 2 Acquisition for Cam Gabilotti. I have seen some really good things from Vicente Gudiel last weekend. Some really patient, smart rides, and hopefully that's going to be the case with this mare. You look at her main track form, and it's quite good. If she's well positioned, she has a victory on the Slappy Seal track. We could see some moisture stick in the main track throughout the day. She's a deep closer, and I do think she might be able to get some pace in front of her from the number 8 and the 10.
Well, I'm a little shocked you didn't leave the number 13. You did not have the 13 picked on your ticket from Todd Pletcher. It's Summer Trance stepping up to the next level. level, stretching out today to a mile in the 16th after notching its second consecutive victory, albeit on the turf when she defeated $16,000 two lifetime claimers going a mile. That was a softened turf at Gulfstream Park West. Turned to Todd Pletcher, Edgar Zayas going for the hat trick. Horse has never been on the dirt, so it's a little bit of a guess.
It's a big guess. And another horse who doesn't have a lot of main track form is the 5 Miss Sweetness for Anthony Pecoraro. I went back this morning and kind of tried to dig up a statistic, and over the course of the past 2 years off the turf, he's actually 27% with an 11-horse sampling and a positive ROI of $2.56. So I love the trainer. I'm familiar with him running his horses in Maryland, whether they be on the turf or the main track, and he always comes out ready and willing to fire. This horse is coming off a freshing, so I use her in the mix.
Yeah, Anthony Pecoraro always spends his winters down here in South Florida, so we're very well. And we both have the number 1 on our ticket, Reckless Move. Just drop into the $16,000 level. Return from a 4-month layoff to finish a useful 7th, but it was a really key race. It was a $30,000 optional claimer on the dirt that produced a pair of next out winners from 4 starters, Gustavo Delgado, Javier Castellano. This one runs well on the dirt. Had 10 previous races on the dirt, 2 wins, 2 seconds, and a third. 2 for 3 in the money on the wet track. So if the moisture stays, maybe this horse is the right one. Of course, you're getting Javier Castellano. That's pretty good.
Absolutely. He had a fantastic weekend on opening weekend. My only concern with the one Reckless Move is she might be a little bit distance challenged at 2 turns on the main track, and she very well could prove me wrong because she's coming out of tougher races. However, at the mile, even farther distances, it almost seems like she flattens out the final couple of strides, and from that inside post, it might be a little bit detrimental, but she definitely has the class, and I had to use her in the ticket. With that said, we're done with races 1 through 4, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6, a very, very popular wager. I do have a small little ticket, and we have a nice big carryover over $21,000 up next. Welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Gabby Gaudette alongside Ron Nicoletti, and we're just about to dive into the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6. Today we do have a nice carryover over $21,000, and you're more familiar with the popularity of it. I mean, I've watched it via simulcast the past couple of years, but this bet just gets huge once we start getting carryovers. It's just such a popular bet for the championship meet.
It gets to a certain level. When it gets over, it'll be like 50,000 today, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 and it just starts going and going. And like I said, someone was lucky enough to hit it for $6.6 million. So a fun wager and a good sequence, and people have really gotten smart on how to bet this thing. In the beginning, really don't know. You can see they're alive. The last race every day, you say, how do these guys be alive with these horses, and they're able to do it? So it's a fun wager, very, very popular here.
It pays to shop around primarily because you have to be the lone winning ticket, obviously, to get the jackpot. So you have to do a couple creative horses in there, and hopefully they show up. Hopefully one of mine shows up, and hopefully we get it through the first leg here. I do have a ticket using 3 horses in the first leg of the sequence here in race 5. It's a 2-year-old maiden special weight, so a couple ways to go, but of course you have to throw in the 10 Broadway Gal, first-time starter for Todd Pletcher, who's just been running lights out with his 2-year-old maidens. Going from there, 1, 4, 10, 2, 9, 12 in the 7th, just 11, 14 in race 8, 1, 8 in race 9, and 2, 6, 8 in today's finale. Again, it was tough for me, especially with some of these races off the turf, to find a single today. So I just used 2 horses and a couple legs, and hopefully we get through it. Race 5, though, does kick us off. Maiden special weight on the main track, and we have the likes of the 10 Broadway Gal, and well, Todd Pletcher, every single 2-year-old that he's running a maiden special weight so far this meet guess what it's done?
What?
It's won.
Oh, well, really? What a shock. Yeah, she's a half sister to Grade 1 to forward Gal winner, Broadway's Alibi, and a Grade 3 winner, Golden Lad. So lots of great breeding with that horse. I know we both used the number 9 horse on top of our ticket, and that is Paola Queen.
I want to go back and take a look at her debut performance because you could get some value with this filly, actually. You look at her debut performance at Saratoga. She was going the 6 furlongs, and that was back in late August. If we could take a look at that replay here, she showed a little bit of speed. Now, the one thing that I noticed here was that they didn't put blinkers on her in debut. This is a replay. She was 12 to 1 that day. She's pretty significantly far back off the pace. She's down on the inside, and the one thing that I noticed from here was kind of her high knee, high head action. It looked like she just wasn't traveling very well because she was just getting caked with dirt. She was down on the inside rail. I think she got a lot of schooling from this performance, though, and I honestly love the fact that they put blinkers on her today because Anne draws kind of a better post. Perhaps she doesn't have to get caught in that line of fire so much as she did in debut.
Yeah, and she was really bogged down on the inside in that race. Did not have a place to run in there, so I think she's going to move forward. You're right about the blinkers, and I noticed your Rainbow 6 ticket, and you see this horse will run fairly well in the Paola Queen. We have the same 3 horses on our ticket, so maybe we can get through this first leg with a win.
Again, looking at her, even her performance, another thing that I actually liked in the final couple of strides here was that there was a filly that was closing on her outside, and once she finally matched her, she dug in gamely to hold her off at the wire, and that's kind of what you want to see when she finally got out of so much dirt coming back in her face. She started to kick clear. So I have to use her. I also threw in the 8 Hell of a Night for George Navarro. I think she's going to show speed. Now she does get to the 6 furlongs. That could be a question mark as she was collared last time out.
Well, I got an interesting stat here. George Navarro is 9 for 39, 23% with horses switching from Gulfstream Park West to Gulfstream Park.
That's
so,
a very good statistic.
so we'll see if that comes through fruition today. We're totally in agreement up there for the first time this year in our selections.
So far, so good. We'll move on to the 6th race here, a starter optional claiming event. Stays on the turf at 7.5 furlongs. So the rail is set at 108 feet. And I go to the 1 McGee here for Phil Gleaves. You go back and look at this horse's last replay. This was at Gulfstream Park West, again, going 7.5 furlongs. So this colt finally got some schooling on the turf. The reason why I do go back to him today is because last time out he did break from a good post position, but I actually like the fact that he draws the rail today. And you look at this horse closing from off the pace. Now, he takes a little bit of time to switch his leads. Once he finally switches leads, this is another case where the number 13 horse is coming with a nice closing rally to the outside. He meets him and, again, digs in gamely to hold him off. This 13 could have easily passed him, but he dug in to beat him by a head at the wire. So I land on him with a good inside post draw. Who did you land on here for race 6?
And I'm liking that pick in the Rainbow 6 because it's 8 to 1 on the morning line. You get a little bit of a price. I did go with the number 4 Strike Up the Band. I also want to note that the rail setting in this race will be at 108 feet. They'll be running on the outer paths on the turf course today for the races that have stayed on the turf course this afternoon. Now getting back to Strike Up the Band, this one moved to the Mike Maker Bond via the claim. Stretches out today around 2 turns on the turf today. He edged away and he defeated $30,000 maidens going 6 furlongs. That was on the Keeneland main track. Maker really good. He's 6 for 54. He's solid with the 2-year-olds going from dirt to turf. Javier Castellano atop this gelded son of Smart Strike, a sire that produces debut turf winners at about 12% of the time. So good connections there. Going to take a lot of money just because of the connections of Mike Maker and Javier Castellano.
Yeah, with this, first off the claim, Javier Castellano aboard. This horse is going to take some money. Smart Strike out of the Awesome Again mare. She was a 4-time dirt winner, graded stakes place. So again, I like the connections at that price. I tried to find value in here, but by no means is this a horse that you can leave off your pick 5 or pick 6 ticket.
No, not at all. I mean, I think you got to have it on there. I used along with that the number 9 Justice for All, but the horse I want to mention in here is the 13 Melody Croon, who broke a maiden at this $35,000 level during October. He's going to face the boys this afternoon after following a couple of solid efforts. That was against $75,000 option claimers with an ambitious 5-wide trip. That was in the $75,000 Wait a Wild Stakes. I think it's a filly against the boys, but I think she's been keeping some pretty nice company. One of the horses on the outside I think you got to have somewhere on your ticket.
All right, looks good. We'll move on to race 7 here, 6,250,000 conditional claimer, 6 furlongs on the main track. And I think this is an interesting race. I could have even, you get to these kind of races and they get tricky. These are the types of races that kind of start to kick you out of the pick 6 and your pick 5s. And looking at this race, I could have easily used 4 horses. I do like your 2 in here. I opt for the 9. Tell me why you like this horse, El Guar River.
Well, Guar River is returning to the main track, first start since defeating a trio of next out winners. So it's a $10,000 two-lifetime claimer, going 5 furlongs on the turf here. Oscar Gonzalez claimed him last time out. Edgar Zayas named on the. He's a previous winner on the dirt here, coming out of a key race. Just thought he was a logical contender in there. Went with the key race angle, and I like the fact that it's coming from the turf to the dirt and proven commodity on that course.
And you have an interesting statistic there, 33% first off the claim.
Yeah, first off the claim, and Oscar Gonzalez, so pretty good, 6 for 18, $3.23 return of investment.
You love to see that. Over $3 ROI, that's always a good option to go with. I kind of tried to beat that horse with the 9, Keep Me Grounded for Jason Service. Again, Vicente Gutiel aboard the 5-pound apprentice was a winner last time out against non-winners of 2 Company at Monmouth. Again, I don't think this is a step up necessarily or a step down. I think it's kind of a lateral move, and it looks like a horse that's in pretty decent form right now and stays at the 3/4 distance. But a lot of these horses are so evenly matched that this is the type of race that you might want to use 3 or 4 horses in the pick 6.
Absolutely. Another horse I just wanted to mention real quick was the 6 Atheon is cutting back today to 3/4 of a mile. Gave performance from a really demanding outside post. That was post 11. He dueled into the stretch before, weakening to finish 4th. It was against $8,000 condition claimers. It was going 7/8 of a mile. It was on the sealed sloppy track. Just thought this horse ran pretty well. Going to have a surface with some moisture in. It's a beautiful day right now, so we're saying the 7th race might be a good track. I'm thinking it might be fast.
Yeah, this track, even as we saw kind of on Sunday when the rain was a little bit sporadic there, it dried out very quickly and very nicely.
Yeah, and it's South Florida, you know that. We have a lot of sun.
Exactly. We'll go on to the 8th race, a $16,000 non-winners, a 2 lifetime condition, originally carded on the turf, will run on the main track at 1 mile and a 16th, and with that comes a lot of scratches and kind of leaves you scratching your head. I landed on 2 horses in terms of the pick 6, the 11 matchup, and the 14 Tinto Mesa. I actually like the 14 kind of coming back to the main track more so than on the turf. So I'm going to try to beat the connections there, although I do respect them with the 11 matchup. Again, this is a type of horse that might be a tad, I don't think will be too pace dependent, especially going the 2 turns here. I like going a route of ground on the main track more so than sprinting. You see some of darkened form because it's been against tougher and maybe shorter distances and was double-digit lengths off the pace, but I think if they can get aggressive early, keep him into contention, maybe we could see a different outcome.
Yeah, this is a work in progress when it's moved from the turf to the main track. And, 14, you mentioned Tinto Mesa, dropping to the 16-2 level after finishing 4th. It was it was a key first level allowance, produced a couple of next out winners from 4 starters. It's Todd Pletcher, Luis Saez, scratches to the inside, was going to be a daunting outside post. I agree with you. I think the move to the main track is going to help this horse, not hinder it. And I just think with the scratches to the inside, the 14 post is not a concern too much anymore.
And you look at another horse who was originally carded for the main track only, so was doing a rain dance and got his wish, and that is the number 15 for Kelly Breen. And you put this horse in the mix again, and I don't really, the questionable part about this horse is where he'll be in terms of the pace setup, because with that outside post position, he's kind of got that mid-speed, maybe second wave of horses, and he could just be caught out so wide.
Yeah, he's going to be caught out wide, and we mentioned the first finish line we used with a mile and a 16th, a little bit of a short run to the first term. I don't know if he can win it, but he can certainly be on the ticket.
Absolutely. Race 9, we'll take a look at an allowance optional claiming event. It does stay on the turf at 7.5 furlongs, and we have a couple of horses who I found intriguing. The 7 Change of Command is one of them. He's such an old trying type of horse. I always remember, no matter whose barn he's in, he always runs really well, and he's definitely a fun horse to watch. He's almost an earner of almost $500,000, so a $500,000 earner. Now he's got the pace, and I've always thought of this horse as kind of even though the 7.5 furlongs here is 2 turns, a kind of more of a distance type of runner. He uses his speed to his advantage, goes on the front end, slows it down, and takes him gate to wire. Today, he has to cut back in distance, and he might get a little pressure to the inside from the one lead singer.
Yeah, lead singer is going to depart from the rail, as you mentioned. Will try and live up to his name when he goes to the lead and hopes to make every call a winning one today. Tom Morley's the trainer. He's got an aggressive jock, Paco Lopez, on the inside, so that's going to cause a speed duel. It's why I went to the number 9, 7th Fleet Human here. But I think you want to go back and show something from Change of Command.
Yeah, let's take a look at his most recent replay. Again, that was going the mile against two other than Allowance Optional Claiming Company. And again, we'll take a look at this race, just kind of the stretch run, because I thought it was a really gutsy race, and he always leaves you hanging off the edge of your seat, this horse. He's been competing against tougher. You look at him coming down the stretch. He's the number 3. He's huge. If you see him in person, he's ginormous here. And the number 1 horse who's closing from off the pace, Tune Me In, excuse me, was just rallying so hard. But this horse really dug in gamely to hold on at the finish. And again, he's an old classy horse, but as I said earlier, 7.5 furlongs versus maybe a mile and a 16th might be a little bit of a preferred distance. So I like your selection, rallying from off the pace.
Yeah, rallying from off the pace and Change of Command. One thing I wanted to mention when we were over at Gulfstream Park West for the first month and a half, they did not favor horses that were on the front end. That is not the case, though, usually at Gulfstream Park. So if you get a horse like Change of Command, gets on the lead, can certainly hold on and win it, but he's going to be hounded, and that's I went with the number 9, 7th Fleet Union, a grade 3 stakes place runner. That's on the Woodbine Poly track, and an impressive $35,000 optional claimer winner on this turf course. You go back and look last March, he's going back to the turf with the perfect stalking style, as we mentioned, and needed to sit behind what should be a really highly contested early pace. It's Nick Gonzalez. He sweetens the deal. He's got Javier Castellano atop this son of a Fleet, Alex.
I like your pick, and I like the price. The 8 Speightstown time is the interesting one, and the 7.5 furlongs, I think, is a big question mark for this horse, especially coming off a freshening since mid-September. But I thought he showed a lot of precocity in his first start to win a maiden special weight at Saratoga. He kind of regressed in form in his second start, facing winners for the first time. But again, this might be a horse that, with the freshening, with a little bit more experience now, we could see a different outcome. He's not going to get the lead, I don't think. He's fast enough, but maybe if he can just sit in that stalking trip and proceed from there, he could show up at a pretty decent price.
Yeah, and a lot of times the jocks read the race in form too, and they realize if there's 8 speeds in the race, not everyone wants to go to lead, so somebody might take back, and that's the fun of handicapping these races that is so competitive.
And sometimes it doesn't always pan out the way we think it does.
Exactly.
We'll go on to the 10th and final race, a 12,500 maiden claimer, 6 furlongs on the main track, and these are the other kind of races that kick you out of the pick six, because really a first-time starter can show up, or maybe even a long shot, a long-time maiden can finally show up for the first time. But I land on the 12, Don't Make Me Cry here for Marcus Vitale. Comes out of the barn the second time, Matt Rispoli in the saddle. Last time out, stretch out to the 7/8, showed speed, faltered late there, but I like the fact that now he's cutting back in distance to the 6 furlongs.
Yeah, and he's now a gelding. You see the gelding mark in your program there. He's turning back, as you mentioned, the 3/4. He opened that and then relinquished that 3-length lead last time out. I think he's going to run well. The horse that you have in second, I have on top of my ticket, and that's the 6, Inky Dinky Doo, and that must have fun naming that horse. Dropping a notch after stalking the pace, coming within ahead of defeating a repeat winner. That repeat winner was called Jet Prince. It was a $16,000 maiden test at the distance, but Jet Prince came back to run on Sunday and didn't fare too well. So, put that in your handicap, and I don't know if it'll show on the early cut past performance line. So, Inky Dinky Doo and the 12, Don't Make Me Cry. Logical contenders in the nightcap, but you might want to go a little deeper in here, especially with the rolling super high fives.
Yeah, I had to use 3 horses, and I actually used one of your horses in there, the 2 40 books in here. And this is an interesting one. Again, you could even throw in the 8 Flowers for Lisa for Joe Sharp, first time gelding, dropping from maiden 30 down to the $12,500 level. Again, these are the races that perhaps maybe you find a single earlier in the day and use 3 or 4 horses in the final leg.
I think we might have the right 3 in there. At least I'm counting on that.
Let's
so we'll
hope.
see.
Let's hope so. Once again, the races 2, 4, and 8 are off the turf, but 6 and 9 do remain on. And it's a beautiful afternoon here at Gulfstream Park, and the Rainbow 6, again, a carryover of over $21,000, starts in race 5 today.
You got it.
All right, thank you for joining us here on the morning show. We're going to take a quick break, and Larry Colmus will be back shortly with scratches and changes. Best of luck.